What we do know is that the messages that pass between the gut and the brain are what we call bidirectional. That means they can go from the gut to the brain, but they can go from the brain to the gut. So they have a supercharged highway of communication.
Make sure to tune into this episode where I chat to our nutritionist Kelly Robinson from Foundations for Health. This is where we're going to simplify gut health and dissect how inflammation from our gut is transferred outside our digestive system. I personally learn a lot from this episode, so make sure to tune in and remember, knowledge is your power.
Someone creates sort of little vulnerabilities inside your body. Once you've got inflammation is really, really quick to take up house in those little vulnerabilities. That's where it can turn into chronic inflammation, which is where we've got the problem. Because acute inflammation is part of our immune system. It's really helpful and beneficial for us.
Thank you, Kelly, for joining me on this nutrition topic. So for everyone listening, Kelly is the Rebuild's in-house nutritionist, but also is runs her own business, which is Foundations for Health. The gut health and everything that goes along with it. I just wanted to pick your brains, Kelly, because you're the guru. But anyway, let's have a little introduction about yourself. You take the floor there.
Okay. Thanks for having me on here. I've worked with Lisa inside Rebuild for probably a good couple of years now.
Yeah, we'll be now. Yeah.
So she sort of knows that I like to bang on a bit about my topics, but for those who haven't come across me before, I am a clinical holistic nutritionist. So I have a Bachelor of Health Science, majoring in nutritional and dietetic medicine. I tend to practice looking at not just the macronutrients with diet, so we look at the micronutrients. What does your body need to remain in a state of health or get back to a state of health? So, we don't look at the diet in isolation. We look at the diet in relation to the whole body and what's going on inside the whole body. Everything's interrelated. You can't separate it.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I love about it.
Approach health and just looking at the role the foods we eat every single day plays in our health situation. So
actually, you know what? I actually just read something. Well, I read something earlier today, and I wrote it down. It says we're not cursed with I'm reading it from over here. It's not cursed with we're not cursed with the microbiome that we are born with. We have the ability to shape it and change it and make it our own through our own choices. The choices we make today could alter our gut health tomorrow. And I know that is so simple, and people go, "Duh, we know that." But how hard it is to implement things, but we can actually change a whole outcome really through our gut health. And that fascinates me a lot, especially in the back and hip.
Yeah, actually, we know through some research that you can start to see changes in the microbiome within a really short period of time when you change the food you're eating. So, it might take longer amounts of time for that to filter through into the overall health outcomes, but we actually see changes in the microbiome population really, really rapidly within a few weeks.
Weeks? I was thinking months, weeks. Isn't that impressive?
Yeah.
It is really impressive. And I think we're going to get into it, but I think the hardest thing, personally speaking, and I'm sure you can give us some stories soon, change is hard for people.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard, and there's a whole trove of reasons why that is, but whenever we do change, it's hard. So there's ways that we can do it to make it easier.
Definitely. Well, let's get into that scientific word microbiome, because to me, when I first heard that word, I am not a nutritionist. I'm a muscle kind of gal. But I was like, a micro what? It sounds kind of like robotic or something, but can you just touch, and I know that, it's a big topic, but can you touch base with what the role is in our overall health with the microbiome? What actually is it?
Okay. Well, to start with, what it is it's the population of microorganisms that live inside our gut, so our gastrointestinal tract. Predominantly, when we talk about it, we're talking about the microorganisms that live in our small and large intestine. Should be mostly in our large intestine. And it could be different species of bacteria, viruses, fungi, all the sorts of different microorganisms that together they make up our microbiome. It could be called our microbiome. It could be called our microbiota, our gut flora. it's all means the same sort of thing. So it's just that collection of organisms that live inside us. And actually, there's more of those different types of organisms in number than there is different cells in our body.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And so once you know that, it's a little bit easier, I think, to start to grasp the fact that actually that population of microorganisms, that sheer volume of it, of course, it impacts our health and has an effect on our body. Because you can't possibly have that volume of things inside you that don't have any effect on the rest of you.
And then, you know, when we say gut health, so obviously they're affected through everything that we do in our gut.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's a bit mind-blowing.
It is. You've just blown my mind in the first 5 minutes. Like, Jesus. Okay, yeah, right. So, so we've got these microbiome, we've got all these, you know, little things in our mostly large, you said, or mostly small?
Yeah, mostly large intestine. Yeah.
Large. Okay, so, you know, gut health is a big word at the moment, you know, improving gut health, not at the moment, but for a little while it's being tossed around. So what is something that we kind of need to pay? Why is it? No, not what. Why should we pay attention to our gut?
Because with the gut, and those microbes in there play a huge role in a lot of our bodily functions. So it's not just that they're isolated, living in our gut, in their own little world, in amongst themselves. So they play a huge role in all sorts of different things. So some of them will make our neurotransmitters that then we use for cognitive function. Some of them will help break down some of our food. We can't actually digest some of the foods we eat. We rely on our gut microbes to break it down for us so we can actually access the nutrients. They produce chemical signals which get spread around to the rest of our body that influences how our body reacts to different things. Can be reactions to stress and things like that. So all sorts of different ways that the microbiome actually directly influences what's happening in the rest of our body. So it's really, really important that we want to create an environment full of beneficial microbes living inside us, doing things that are helpful for our body.
100%.
Rather than have microbes in there that maybe are a little bit pathogenic or, you know, those sorts of things, which then that can start causing health issues for us. I mean, 70% of our immune system is also housed in our gut. So, you know, whatever's happening with our microbes is having a big impact on our immune system.
So they break down the foods we eat. Is that me being silly?
No, not all of them. But there are definitely some foods that we'll eat that we can't break down. So the microbes can do that for us. And sometimes the different microbes will produce, so B12 is a vitamin that's often produced by microbes in our gut. Serotonin is one of our big happy hormones. So most of our serotonin is actually produced by the bacteria in our gut.
Right.
So yeah, there's lots of different roles that our gut microbes do. I said, you know, when you see pictures of those, you know, big beasts in Africa, and they've got the birds kind of on them, and the birds are going around. You know, it's like a symbiotic relationship. Like the birds are picking off the lice and the bugs and things off the animal, which helps them stay healthy. But that helps the birds because they stay healthy. They're getting the things they need to survive and thrive as well. So it's kind of like, I think that's just a good visual of the interaction of, you know, they want to survive. We want to survive, and, you know, what we do affects each other.
And just going back to B12 and serotonin, like they're big ones that are depleted in a lot of women. I know I've been told that. I'm sure I'm not, you know, by myself there, but B12, serotonin, all these sort of things, it's common to be depleted in them. So gut health.
B12 has another side of things too. We need something called intrinsic factor in the stomach to be able to access B12 from our foods and things like that there as well. So it's a little bit more complicated. It's not just the microbiome side of things and that. But yeah, it's just that there are all sorts of things that play a big role that we go through our life every day, knowing that these are issues, but not quite knowing that we have the capacity to do something about it just by changing what we eat.
And just talking to you, like I said, I I'm not a nutritionist, but I have these little brain farts, right? But we can control so much more.
Yes.
When you talk gut health and pains and health reasons that come from gut health, well, we can actually control a lot more with the right advice, obviously.
Exactly. Once you have the know-how and the knowledge, and you know what's helpful and maybe what's a little bit counterproductive, then you're in a position of power to take control of what's going on in your health situation, as opposed to feeling like your body is taken over by someone else and you're just kind of to put up with whatever's happening. There is definitely things that you can do to help yourself.
And you hear that a lot, especially your industry, my industry. Oh, well, this is just me now and I'm controlled by this. And I know the ways with muscles, and you're the nutrition, specialist, guru, but there is so much control that can be had. It's you've blown my mind in the first 5 minutes. So anywho, on that, personally with me, and I'm sure again, if I've got this question, there'll be other people out there. So we're all interconnected, right? The body, the whole system, head, shoulders, knees and toes, and everything in between is interconnected. So I mentioned gut health. So it's not just contained, inflammation is not just contained in the gut though, is it? Not just in our digestive. So by these microbiomes and, upsetting and having inflammation in the gut, what else are we talking about? Inflammation in other parts of the body?
Yeah. Okay. So often inflammation can start in the gut. Once it sort of kicks off and starts going from there, then it can enter our bloodstream, and then it moves around our body and it kind of targets our weak points. So we all have, weak points or susceptibilities. It might be from genetics. They might be from, environmental triggers that you're around or exposed to. It might be from previous injuries that you've had or illnesses even that you've had and things like that. So it sets up and creates sort of little vulnerabilities inside your body. And once you've got inflammation is really, really quick to take up house in those little vulnerabilities and really get going. And that's where it can turn into chronic inflammation, which is where we've got the problem. Because acute inflammation is part of our immune system. It's really helpful and beneficial for us. It's where it becomes chronic that's when it's not switching off, it's not resolving, and then over time that sort of turns into chronic health issues. And an example is some of the foods that we eat change the microbe species in our guts. And so there are some species of microbes that they will secrete inflammatory chemicals which go into your gut and then pass through your gut into your bloodstream. And then those inflammatory chemicals, we call them cytokines is the official term, and they will travel around your body and they will cause damage somewhere.
Weak spot. Okay. And so is the blood the transmitter, so to speak, of the inflammation?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that the research is there yet on this, but we do also have the lymphatic system, which also transport things around, tends to try and flush things out. So I'm not sure, potentially there's maybe some stuff that can pass around through that as well. But, predominantly we're thinking of, traveling around via the blood. You've got these inflammatory chemicals that go around and they take up house somewhere and they go into mass production. That's where they live, and it could be anywhere in the body.
So on that note, there's lots of notes. My brain goes, wow. So I've had a lot of gut issues, okay? Hormones and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I've had a gut full. Literally, no. Anyway, a lot of gut issues and have been easing through it and things are feeling good. I've just started, look at me pointing my finger, I've just started having lymphatic drainage massage. And I've only had 2, and I had them 3 weeks apart. And the very first one I had 3 weeks ago, I just had one yesterday.
Yeah.
As soon as I had finished, I had no pain in my, and I have had pain in my belly, for a little while, and I've been working through it. But I was completely pain-free in my belly as soon as I had that lymphatic massage. And then I felt great for 2 weeks, and then leading up to the second one, things started creeping back. And I had it yesterday and completely again. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So, because our lymph fluid is a really great way that we utilize to flush out toxins and things that just sort of when we get damaged cells, which happens in inflammation, our body will try and kill those cells off because they're causing damage and things like that. So in our body, cells die all the time, and we're regrowing new cells and things like that. So when cells are broken down and die off and things, sometimes they'll produce, toxic byproducts and things like that. Sometimes the food we eat creates toxic byproducts or chemicals and, medications and all sorts of things like that. So our lymph system is one of the ways that our body will flush out those toxins for elimination and get rid of them. And so therefore, it sounds like you've gone in, you've had this, bubbling away underneath. Your lymphatic has really promoted that flushing out so you can get rid of those. Yeah. And then, so do you normally find with your lymphatic massage you're having lots of water around that time?
Drinking lots of water?
As you sort of finish up, you should drink.
I do. Well, see, I drink a lot of water anyway. Okay. So I am one of those, like, I've got what is this, 1.2 litres in front of me, and I could drink 3 of them in a day.
Okay. Yeah.
But probably I did drink a little bit more as well afterwards.
At the end of those sorts of things, to have a really good drink of water, and that's going to help flush things out as well. And
I'm addicted. I said to the lady, I mean, like she said, eventually you won't have to come all the time, but and with everything else that I'm doing, but yeah, interesting. So anyway, you go.
Have you ever heard of dry brushing?
No. Oh, did she mention that? No, you tell me what that is about.
Because, just for clarity's sake, being a holistic nutritionist, we don't just deal with diet, we do diet and lifestyle. Yes. So one of the things that we'll sometimes recommend for people is dry brushing. And so if you get like a bristly brush, you don't want anything too coarse, but natural bristles is kind of good. And then before you have a shower, you always want to sort of brush in the direction of your heart. So you can start with up your legs and things like that, brushing up towards your heart, and then sort of, your abdomen up to sort of heart area, and then start going on your arms, brushing towards that direction and that sort of thing. And that promotes lymph fluid, stops it stagnating and sort of sitting around and that sort of thing. Again, drinking water is great. Showering afterwards is great because it helps to sort of wash anything away, and can be really helpful for promoting that flushing of the lymph node, the lymph fluids and stuff like that. So that's something you can do at home, maybe in between.
I definitely will be doing that. Because I noticed a big difference. Yeah. And I didn't even go for gut. I just went for, and honestly, like, you reach a certain age and hormones are not your friend. And a friend of mine had actually gone and said that it helped ease a few symptoms. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go. And then all of a sudden, bang, it was just so good. Yeah. So I'm going to do that brushing, definitely.
Let me know how it goes.
I will. On the whole gut inflammation elsewhere, another fact or another thing that I would love to know more, and is it true? So, listen to your gut. So we all listen to our gut, but does it actually, gut health and brain function, are we kind of interconnected here, or is there a bit of...
Yeah, you better believe we are. So there's a thing called the gut-brain axis, and that's like a legitimate thing. And we are still, the science behind it, we don't know everything yet. But we've got something called the vagus nerve, which is the big in the body that runs from the brain down to the gut. And what we do know is that the messages that pass between the gut and the brain are what we call bidirectional. That means they can go from the gut to the brain, but they can go from the brain to the gut. So they have like a supercharged highway of communication. So what happens in one is definitely, sending messages to the other, and that's affecting the other. So 100%.
Can they get disconnected when there's an issue in the gut? Like even just sluggish or along those lines?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I doubt they get disconnected completely. Like I said, we don't have all the research. We don't have all the answers in this. We don't know a lot of the mechanisms behind how it all works and things like that. There is a term known as vagal tone that does sort of like talk about, I guess increasing vagal tone might be a way of increasing the way those message pathways work and things like that. But like I said, we're still not 100% sure how it works there. But even things like humming, singing, those vibrational type things, they can be good for increasing vagal tone and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're still learning exactly how it all works, but there's definitely some things that we know as far as gut health and brain health. So it's really, really clear. The research has become really abundantly clear that diets that are high in ultra processed food, which is pretty well a standard Western diet in a lot of Westernized countries. We eat a lot of heavily processed supermarket foods that don't have a lot of good nutrition left in them.
Yeah.
And so when you eat a diet high in those, we know that people get higher amounts of neuroinflammation. So neuro meaning brain. So you actually get more inflammation in your brain when you're eating a diet high in these really processed foods.
Can I ask on that? Is that like when you feel sluggish or foggy or anything like that? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, it can be that. It can affect mental state, can affect emotional regulation. It can even affect something called your HPA axis. So your H is your hypothalamus, which is in your brain, your pituitary, which is in your brain. They're sort of hormone producing parts of the brain, and then the A is the adrenal. So they're your adrenal glands that are involved in your stress hormones and things like that. So it can affect the messages that they're sending, which has a big influence on the rest of your body and your hormones and all sorts of things. Like it's quite huge when you start the full scope of how these things interact. So we know that when we do tests and look at the populations of the microbes in people's guts, that those populations profoundly influence your mental state. We don't necessarily know all the nuances and the exact specifics of how and why it all works, but we know that there is a strong influence from that. So we know that gut health is correlated with anxiety conditions, depression, even ASD, so autism spectrum disorders. It's really well established that there's a strong gut correlation with those things.
Yeah, right. Makes sense though, doesn't it? Now that you say it, and we're kind of, to me, my brain's kind of like piecing it together. Yeah, it's actually quite deep.
Yeah.
Very deep. And I going back to when I said about sluggish and stuff, like I know that I can eat certain foods and I can tell whether that food is positive or negative. Like I just get an instant reaction type thing, like, either sluggish or brain fog or, inflammation, even in my fingers type thing, do you know? So I know just to stay away from those foods.
Yeah.
And I have to, because to me, it's poison in my system.
See, I get that as well. So I have an autoimmune condition and things like that. And I really notice there are certain foods that will flare up joint pain for me and things like that. And so I tend not to eat those. And it was a process figuring out which ones they were and that sort of stuff. But once I don't have any temptation to eat those foods.
Yeah.
It feels so lousy when you do. Once you start to correlate and realise, it makes it so much easier to go, you know what, I don't think so.
I have to say, like, when I started sifting through particular foods, and if there was something, even if I thought it was a healthy food for me, but it just didn't suit me.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was hard. I might go, okay, well, I can't. And then maybe like, it might get offered to me and I think, but eventually it all just gets eliminated.
I actually find cheese is the big one that my clients tell me, I don't want to give up cheese. I love cheese.
Yes.
So usually what we try and do is like, why don't we have a break from it for a couple of weeks?
See how good you feel.
See how you go.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you want to try having a little bit and see what happens.
That's exactly. I did that with gluten. That wasn't fun.
Yeah.
That wasn't fun.
No, because we don't do gluten as well. We're really reactive. We actually have a strong family history of celiac. So we don't do gluten. But when we first did elimination diet with my kids, they've all got food intolerances. We're trying to work out what they were. And we did it as a family because we were going to support them, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have to do it on their own. And I reacted to the gluten, and I was just like, what?
Yeah, right.
What the kids, like, this is not cool. But I did occasionally in the early days go, oh, you know what, I just really want,
It's everywhere. Gluten. That's a hard one.
yeah, but then you feel so flippant
Good.
lazy.
My brain was clear as
Yeah.
day. And then when I had gluten, I actually felt like I had the worst hangover of my whole life.
Yeah.
I was ill.
Yeah, and gluten can have a massive impact on the brain inflammation and things like that. My middle son is really reactive to gluten, but behaviorally, and that's quite common with kids. So you don't give him gluten, and he's the most beautiful kid you've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
Give him gluten, and he, particularly when he's young, he chooses. He doesn't even consider having it because he doesn't like the way it used to mess with him. But he used to, like, all his self-regulation would go out the window. His ability to be emotionally stable would go out the window. He would just completely.
How old was he when you figured all this out?
The kids were really little when we went through this. So when we first started, he was probably sort of, 3.5, that sort of thing. I remember he went through a stage when he was in grade 1, so it would have been about 6 or 7 or something like that. He went through a stage where he was sort of sneaking some food from friends at school.
Yeah, right.
And I was really racking my brains because at home his behaviour was going out the window. He's off the wall. And like, what's going on? Like, we haven't changed his diet. I don't understand where this is suddenly coming from. And then my daughter saw him at school eating some food from someone else. And so it's like, right, okay. And then once we got him back off that, everything settled back down again.
Interesting.
Yeah, but like nowadays, he has no interest in eating that sort of food now because he knows how he responds and reacts. He hates feeling like that. He hates that, that feeling that everything, it's almost like a depressive.
Hard. Everything's hard.
Yeah, everything's hard. And
I suppose being 3, he's grown up with that.
Yes.
And you were really in a great. Were you studying nutrition back then, or
it's kind of around that point, like when we first discovered what was going on and things like that. I wasn't qualified. I was working in early childhood in a family support and early intervention service, and all I knew was that the kids had some health issues, and we were trying to figure out what it was, and we eventually worked out it's food. And then it was that process of trying to work out how to help them and overcome that I learned all of these things and went, oh my God, why did I not know this?
Yeah.
Why have I spent the last, 30 years of my life going through thinking I knew what was going on? And actually there's this whole world of stuff that I didn't realize. And so I threw it all in and went to study so I could take that out there and share that with people and give them the power to help themselves.
I love that. And that's why I love you helping my ladies in rebuild as well, because my passion is teaching people.
Yeah.
Really, you can come and, like we were just talking earlier about, having people just come and see you. But I want to teach people how to actually take control.
Yes.
And in my world, like physios and all that jazz, you can go weekly appointments and you feel better. But I just want to just tell everybody, we can take control.
Yes.
And that's going to make us feel better, and we're not just living in a shell of a body type thing,
Yeah, I never do meal plans as part of my clinical practice, because what happens if I give you a 4-week meal plan and send you on your way, you could cycle through that for a couple of months, but then what happens when you get sick of that meal plan? You've got to come back to me and get another meal plan, and it's just like, what is that? No, I want to teach you the tools so you know how to find foods and recipes and things like that are going to nourish you and do good things for your body. So you don't have to come and see me whenever you need a new meal plan or
long term, like those sort of things, like meal plans, I suppose, is giving people, I don't know, this is my analogy, and I don't know if my brain is strange like that, but just a Band-Aid. You know what? This is what you need to do People go and follow it like robots, but what are they learning along the way? And without you, in 10 years' time, and without that meal plan, they might have lost that meal plan. What do they do? Like,
Yeah, they're right back where they started.
exactly. And that's like my motto with everything. You know, I've said it to my kids since they were young, that anything that happens fast doesn't last. And I always refer that to like the fad diets. And
Yes.
I don't even know what the fad diets are these days, but drop lots of weight and then you put it back.
Yeah.
Haven't
Yeah.
actually learned anything. So take it back to like you are what you eat. You actually literally are what you eat.
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to say something here. And in fairness, doctors aren't taught a lot about nutrition, so they don't know. But it's really frustrating. Sometimes you'll go to the doctor, or you'll have a condition. They'll tell you that what you're eating doesn't affect it. Don't worry about what you're eating. It doesn't influence. We are starting to see some of the research starting to filter into clinical practice, because that takes years. Like it can take like 15, 20 years for medical research to start filtering into practice. So it's becoming a little bit more widely understood that diet actually does play a huge impact on our health. But that's always been something that's hard to get across, because people trust doctors, and doctors are brilliant at lots of things, but they don't do a lot of nutrition training. They can't teach you what they don't know. Right. So, you hear and you get told, you kind of get that repeated message that what you eat doesn't matter, it doesn't affect anything, but it affects so many different things. 100%. If you've got something on in your health, there's a good chance that what you're eating is either directly or indirectly influencing what's going on. Like everything we do in our body takes nutrients to do it. Yeah. Like every single thing that happens in our body, whether we're making a hormone, whether we're converting a hormone into a usable form, whether we're digesting food, whether we're making energy, we can't, like a lot of people think of sugar as energy, but we can't use the raw state of glucose. We use it for one of our most efficient energy making processes. We use sugar for that. So that's where we correlate sugar with energy, but we can't actually use sugar as energy. Glucose. We've got to convert it, and that needs nutrients. So when you go to the doctor and you're saying, "Oh, I'm so tired all the time, I don't have any energy," is it the food that I'm eating or something? No.
Well, I'm a prime example. I'm absolutely prime example. Like my hormones went haywire, and anyone who knows me knows this, and I'm happy to spread the news. My hormones, it felt like it was just overnight went haywire. The doctors couldn't come down with, any kind of thing, and lots and lots of tests. So anyway, long story short, I just went, well, maybe it's I need to reassess my food and everything as well. And once I started doing my food and understanding me and my gut health, not just because, lettuce is good for you, do I eat lettuce, but and understanding how my energy is after food, like that's when things started to, or have been starting to come good. So I'm a prime example. Yeah,
and it is that individual as well. Like, yes, we've got certain foods that we tend to think of as anti-inflammatory and all of that sort of thing. But the reality is everyone responds differently to different foods. Yeah. So I know that almonds really flare up my salivary gland, that part of my autoimmune condition. Like I was going a bit hard on that at the end of last year. I blew up like a golf ball.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it was the most excruciatingly painful thing.
Wow.
With a salivary stone was blocking my salivary duct, and eventually I passed it, but it still took a couple of weeks. Yeah, it was really painful, like excruciating.
And have you eaten almonds previously, or just because you had a lot?
I'd cut them out. I cut out a few different things trying to pinpoint what was causing the problem. I'd reintroduced it for a week, or probably a couple of weeks, and it was really good to reintroduce it. I'm like, a little bit guilty. Is this causing me? No, I'm pretty sure it's fine. It's just a coincidence, and then boom. You know what? Haven't had almonds since.
Does that mean that you have to be careful of almond meal and all that jazz?
Yeah. So, but that's me. It doesn't mean that you or anyone else is going to have problems.
No. Yes.
It's really individual. So you kind of you can talk about generalized sort of anti-inflammatory foods and generalized healthy foods and things like that, but everyone's a bit individual. And so just because this is working for one person doesn't mean it's a great fit for you. You kind of got to get a little bit good at, like what you've done, starting to pay attention to the signals that your body's giving you and listening to that because the body's giving you messages. You just got to tune in and pay attention and go, yeah, okay, I'm picking you up. I'm hearing you.
Yeah. And a big one for me, I'll go back to me because I know it was true, is tired, fatigue.
Yes. Huge.
And then really sorting out the foods that caused me fatigue.
Yes.
Or am I eating enough? So I've upped my training. I'm training for a marathon swim at the moment. So what I was eating before I started training for the marathon swim, I can't eat now for energy. I have to increase, do you know?
Yeah.
And again, now I'm back on the bandwagon of, is this too much or is this too little, or forever thinking, but it was the sleeping, it was the fatigue that I was just like, I'm so tired. And then it improved my food and I'm not so tired anymore. So
it has a profound impact on fatigue.
Yeah, and that's a common thing for people to say, I'm always so tired. We have a little checklist, right? Like it comes from your side, it comes from my side, it comes from a lot of other things. But like I always say to people, we've got a bubble here that's in our control, and we've got a bubble here that's out of our control. And there's so much more in our control than we actually think.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. Can I ask though, because we're kind of like sprinkling through things and I'm flashing in my brain. So like a big thing, I don't know whether it's been a while or it's just me hearing about it, but the market, the ads and everything is flooded with like supplements and powders and all these, I'm going to call them synthetic. I haven't looked into them, but all these sort of things. Where are you, being the professional, on the opinion? And let's go inflammation, because I know that it's another whole kettle of fish, right? But when we talk inflammation, and like I pick up a packet and I'm like, well, I need this. Like, goodness, this will be my magic pill. Yeah, like marketing is.
That's what they want you to think.
That's right. Marketing is a powerful tool. So, and I know that, it's another whole kettle of fish, but in your professional opinion, where are we at?
The very, very, very first thing I need to make sure is really clear to everyone that it doesn't matter how you go about it, you can't out-supplement a poor diet.
Yes, love that.
It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it.
Yeah.
Okay, you're never going to. It's like that Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
Might help reduce some things in the short term or things, but it doesn't fix the underlying problem.
Yeah.
So if you just think, you know what, I'm going to keep eating all the crappy foods and just take this magic wonder, things might get better for a little while, but it's not actually addressing the issue. Yeah. So in my clinical practice, I will definitely use some supplements for, an acute situation. Someone's come to me with something going on that might be something inflammatory. So there's definitely things that we can use in a short-term acute situation. There's a whole range of different things that are anti-inflammatory as well. So it's about knowing, some things are better for dealing with inflammation in certain parts of the body. So it's much more helpful if you sort of know which ones you're looking for and that sort of thing. So I will use them in the short term while we work on the diet and the lifestyle and the other things that are all contributing to that inflammation. And that's kind of the approach. It helps you in the short term sort of get things to a better place while you fix some of those underlying things. Because if you don't address that, then I don't know, you want to take those.
You're not going to fix anything.
Well, you're not going to fix anything. You're going to take those for the rest of your life, and you're probably still going to slowly deteriorate because it's still bubbling away underneath. So
yeah, that's right. Really find out if you need it.
Yeah.
And then get advice on why this is happening to you.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember with supplements too is, depending on your genetics, depending on if you're taking other medications, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe for you. Yeah. And there's a scope of like, you want to make sure you're taking enough to get a therapeutic effect.
Yeah.
But there's a whole range of them that you can take too much and it becomes toxic, sort of like the dose makes the poison. So you don't want to waste your money not quite taking enough to do anything either.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't want to, take too much and end up in a toxicity state that's causing more damage. So it's all nuanced and it's probably that's where I recommend like consulting with someone who knows that sort of thing to make sure your money's being used wisely, but also you're addressing those other things, because that's really the key.
That is definitely the key. And I actually found out recently I was seeing a like a functional doctor.
Yep.
Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. I'm going to drink of water. Who could test outside Medicare? Anyway, a few little bits and bobs going on. And he actually discovered that my body doesn't absorb any, like the supplements.
Right.
You know, like the actual bindings and the actual ingredients in a supplement, I don't absorb. When I was a teenager, the doctor said, here, take some iron tablets. You know, the little red ones, the ferrochrome,
Yeah.
get that left, right, and center. And my iron levels would never go up, even though I was gobbling these ones down. But that's why. You know, my body just doesn't absorb it. So I'm not alone out there.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So he was saying that you don't absorb any supplement. Okay, because I've heard of like not sort of absorbing well different forms of supplements, because you can get like magnesium's a classic one. Lots of people tell me that they're on magnesium, and you know, there's I don't know 10 different varieties of magnesium that you get.
When you read bottles and stuff, there's so many different forms of magnesium.
And so, you know, different forms of magnesium are good for different sorts of things. You know, if you're taking magnesium oxide, it's probably not doing much more than making it go to the toilet, if we're honest.
See, like this is where people just need to, like, you do need to really do your research, don't you?
Yeah. But also with things like iron, a lot of the pharmaceutical iron tablets that they'll give you cause a lot of gastrointestinal symptoms, like a lot of, you know, there might be nausea, bloating, pain, all sorts of constipation, that sort of stuff. So the ones that we use as clinical practitioners in the natural health space where I'm at, they're much more gentle on the stomach, and they tend to be absorbed a little bit better. But then
the doctors hand them out like lollies.
Yeah, I know. But then it's also better if you don't take them every day. They're better
right.
Take them every second day.
Yeah.
Right. So it can be little nuances like that as well. Like, you know, when's the best time to take this? Because there's different times of the day where your body will absorb iron. So that iron absorption works almost like on its own circadian rhythm.
Yeah, right.
Something called hepcidin, which will sort of govern how well your body absorbs iron.
So basically what everyone needs to know is they need to come and see you, and then you can give them advice.
Well,
I think that would be the most sensible.
Yeah, because otherwise potentially you are just throwing your money away. Like it's throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
I think it's going to stick and do the thing that you want to do.
But like you said, like you might be overdosing yourself.
Yeah. And
so you're best off just knowing.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said, I really do want to reiterate that point. You can't out-supplement a poor diet.
Right. Yeah,
you have
100%.
to fix those other things underneath. Yes, they can help short-term, but it's not the answer.
Yeah, that's right. Food is very powerful.
Yes, hugely.
So, I knew it was, but then talking to you now, like my brain goes, well, I need to go and do this, and this, and this. But I am passionate about being the best version of me.
Yes.
You know, so that I can, I'm training for a 27-kilometer ocean swim. You know, like I will be able to put my body through that, you know, because I don't care. It's not my age. It's, I will be able, you know, I'm going to have my body to its best potential. And food is I will only finish that swim with the correct fueling.
Yeah.
There is no bottom line.
Because that's going to take a massive toll on your body. And it doesn't matter how much you train if you're not addressing those other things and giving your body what it needs to get through that.
Exactly right. And fun fact, swimming for an hour, you burn 570 calories in the pool. And I'm going to be swimming for 11 hours. So
that's a lot of sustaining that you need.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's right. And so that's how powerful food is, you know, in moving.
Yeah, and it's not even just making sure you've got the stores of those calories being there for you to access and use and things like that. You need sort of that metabolic flexibility to be able to tap into, you know, because yes, like I said before, we use sugar as our main, that's our way to convert energy fastest, our most efficient way. But we can also break down fats and proteins and convert them into energy as well. You know, but being able to swap between sugar dominant energy production and fat dominant energy production and things like that. That's not easy for a lot of people, especially as we've sort of, grown up on these Western diets that really just encourage the sugar pathway.
Yeah.
So kind of like use it or lose it. When you don't ever use that fat component of your energy production, then, it just kind of doesn't work as efficiently. So you're going to need that ability to move between those different ones. And, you don't want to be breaking down too much of your proteins because that's
not at all. Otherwise, she's not going to finish the race.
Yeah.
And I am determined. But, like the advice, like I need to speak to you, obviously. And I'm only just trained, like I've got 12 months. So, but I've got 12 months. I need to train smart, and experiment with nutrition.
Yeah.
But, having the percentages right. So and when we can talk without people doing marathon swimming, like portion sizes and having the right thing for you, just because this is me and you're the professional in it, but just because a salad is good, I don't know if something is good for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you eat a truckload of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like with your supplements, with your food, the dose makes the poison.
Yes.
So you're much better, like the best rule of thumb with your food is to try and eat as much variety as you can.
Yeah. Right.
Then you get a whole variety of nutrients and you're feeding a whole variety of microbes in your gut.
Microbes. Every time I eat, I'm going to think about me feeding my little microbes. They're my little mini me's. I love it. So if, people are thinking they're on the right track, but after listening to this, they think, oh, God, or they haven't even started. What's some simple practical tips or some place where to start in your head? I know that we could be here for hours because there's so many places to start, but generally.
Yeah. And so the key here is don't try and do everything at once because that's not sustainable. It's not realistic. You're going to freak out and crash and the wheels are going to fall off the wagon. So be realistic with change. Like you said before, change is hard. So,
any situation.
Yeah. So start small and start with one change and build that in. And once you got that under your belt solidly, then you start with the next change and things like that. So, general key sort of, I don't follow one diet fits all approach. I don't, I don't sort of browbeat everyone into the Mediterranean diet or, the paleo diet or the vegan diet or whatever it is, because the reality is a lot of those diets can have beneficial health effects for people. So the general principles of what you want to do is whole foods. So foods that don't have ingredients, foods that are ingredients.
I like that saying.
Yeah. So the more whole foods you can get in, the better, because that's where all your nutrients are, right?
So is that like the theory when people say shop on the outside of the supermarket?
Yeah, because that's where you're going to find your fruits and your vegetables and your meats and your eggs and, all of those sorts of whole unprocessed foods.
Yeah, like it.
Try and limit those packaged foods. I mean, obviously you want to limit sugar, refined sugars and things like that. That's going to have a big, that will also affect the population of your microbiome. So it tends to encourage more of those pathogenic or, if you will, bad bacteria and things like that. So those sorts of things. In terms of microbiome, a good rule of thumb is if you can try and get across a week, so not every day, across a week, if you can try and get up to like 30 different plant foods in there. And that's not like 30 different.
A lot.
It sounds a lot, okay, but it's not 30 vegetables, okay? Because that's what.
Because I'm like, hang on. 30. You're really challenging me now, Kelly.
It's your nuts and your seeds.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So if you have, a couple of serves of mixed nuts, you're getting a different variety there. Herbs and spices, they're plant foods. So, you add.
I didn't even put that in that category.
Yeah. So it's not talking about vegetables. So a lot of people hear plant foods and think vegetables.
Yes, I did.
Vegetables are plant foods.
Yeah.
But they're not the only plant foods, right?
Yeah, true. Okay.
Even things like whole grains. And this is where you've got to be careful. Like, a lot of people think whole grains and refined grains will do the same thing. They won't. So we're talking about things like quinoa or, buckwheat or things like that, like in steel cut oats. those sorts of things. So they're going to be a plant food. Beans and legumes, so chickpea or things like that, which we're coming into soup weather. You can throw those in.
Yeah, I was just talking about that this
like
morning. Yeah.
Obviously your fruits, it's not just vegetables. So when you start adding up all of those things, it's actually
That's actually there is. When you've just rattled off probably 20 things already.
Yeah. And so you can actually sit down and sort of make a note of what you had yesterday and roughly work out how many different sorts of plant foods you have. So if say you work out like, you know what, I got about 10 in. Yeah. What I don't want you to do is tomorrow decide, that's it, I'm getting 30 in like
in one day over the course of the week.
Yeah. So if your starting point is you might be getting 10 over the week, then you go, okay, maybe I can go to 12 or 14 or something like that. And once you've got that solid, then you kind of want to step it up a little bit and just keep going until you eventually get to 30.
Yeah.
That's what the best, the most robust microbiome. So a healthy microbiome is one with a huge diversity. There are lots of different species of microbes in there.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. I like that a lot. Actually, I talking now, like you're saying all these things. I don't eat enough. I don't with what I do, like because I will train 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I was just when you said think about what you ate yesterday. Well, I really did. I literally thought about what I ate yesterday, and I'm like, well, it wasn't too much. So yeah, I really need to. I'm going to do this 30 plant-based challenge next week.
Yeah. And remember though, if you're fairly short of the mark, don't aim straight for 30.
No. Just I'll do it and sprinkle a little bit more and see where I come up with.
Yeah. And you can just kind of keep chipping away at it until you get up to about 30. We know with the research that there's a big difference in health outcomes for people with fewer than 10 plant foods in the week. Once you get over 30, there's not a lot of they've checked people up to sort of 40. There's not a lot of additional benefit past that 30. So you can eat more if you do that. But 30 seems to be like that sweet spot of, you're getting your health benefits and things like that. And it's great for your microbiome there.
I'm going to try that. I'm definitely going to try it. So I know we've been talking for ages. I feel like we could talk for a long time, but, not everyone has the time to listen. So we're going to do a part 2. We've decided we will do a part 2. But I want to actually ask you, because I know that you're super passionate about changing people's lives, as am I. That's why I absolutely love having you helping my program out as well, because you are the professional in that field. I'm a professional in the muscle field, and it really does change people. And you've even heard it from the ladies inside Rebuild,
Yeah.
Changing the food has changed their lives as well. So what is the most rewarding part of your work with your clients, in your words? Like what do you feel like you get fulfilled with?
There's a couple of things. I love that first moment where people start to connect the dots between those messages in their body and the foods that they're eating. That is just like,
magic. Like you've just gone, oh.
That once they because once you realize that, then you're empowered to take control of what's happening to your body. And I absolutely love that. And then the other thing is, when I can talk to people about, the changes that they can make in their diet, their lifestyle, that I know are likely to result in changes in their health situation. And then when we actually start to see that happening, people who think that there was no way out for how they were feeling because they've been to, a dozen different doctors and they've tried a lot of stuff. And then things start to change and it's just
magic.
It feels a little bit like magic sometimes, but it's not. It's just them changing some fundamentals about the things they do every day in the foods they eat and the things that they do, in their work, in their home, all of that sort of thing. And it just has profound on-flow effect to their health. And it's incredible.
Taking control. It's people taking control, and approaching things differently. Like even in my industry, like where I tell people we've got to retrain muscles and approach it like this and approach it like that and take that out of your brain. And we need to now install these foundations. When you see people approaching things differently in that way, for me, I'm like, oh my God, like this person is now setting that they are going to change. saying, like, you're pretty much saying the same thing in your industry, that when you actually see the little penny drop in people and they
Yes.
approach things in a different way to benefit them in the long run, it is magic. Like, you know that there's lifelong results there.
Yes, yeah, and because see, that's the thing. Like when you don't correlate those things, you kind of can approach change from a temporary type, like that old bad diet type perspective that if I eat like this for a month, I'm going to drop 3 dress sizes and all my problems are solved and stuff like that. But it's key lasting change, and once you start making the connections of what's happening in the rest of your body, that's where those changes start becoming permanent, because you realize that it's not just about what you do for a few weeks, it's about what you do every day.
Right. That's why I wanted to read what I read earlier, about what you do today actually changes your future.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely does.
Every single choice you make. And because, I always hear people like talk about, I've ruined the weekend. I had this one thing to eat that I shouldn't have eaten, and now, the wheels are falling off, and I may as well just go all out. But I like to try and reframe that. You know what? Every time you put something in your mouth is a new opportunity to choose something that supports your body and your health goals. Yeah. So just because you ate something that, you maybe feel like you shouldn't have, so to speak, look, last time you had something doesn't mean that you can't give your body something that nourishes it, and then the very next time you eat something.
I heard a very good, something that stuck in my brain, so it might not stick to everybody. This was years ago. Oh God, 15 years ago. Somebody actually, I don't even know. They said in that instance, where, okay, well, I've had a piece of chocolate. Oh, so stuff it. I'm just going to go and eat the chips, and I'm going to go and have this and this and this and this. Yeah. And I'll just pick up on Monday. So this person explained it was, your mobile phone is the bad food and you drop it once, but you can pick it up and dust it off.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But then you go and have the chips. So you stomped on your mobile phone again. Then you go have this and you stomped on it again. You stomped on it and you just keep stomping on your phone until it's actually just particles, and you can't pick it up and dust it off in that time. And I was like, I actually like that, because you can just pick it up and dust it off and be like,
it's not a
big deal.
Yeah. And that I'll say there too is, if you're out, say, at a birthday party and you're going to have something that you wouldn't normally have because it doesn't affect your grade and things like that. Say you love your cheese, but it makes you really crook. But you decide, what, I'm gonna have this piece of cheese. Absolutely get in that moment and really bloody enjoy that cheese, because you know what, you might wake up feeling terrible tomorrow and you're probably going to regret it. But at least in that moment,
you enjoyed it.
Really immerse yourself in that experience of eating the cheese, and then pick up and carry on and go on. Like, don't beat yourself up.
Mobile phone up and dust it off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
And that's okay. Just, it doesn't mean that, like, because you made that one choice that you need to throw out, the rest of the month or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And then feel guilty about it. Just enjoy that treat and then carry on. I love that. So let's make it very clear to all our audience where they can find you. How do people either get in touch with you or find out more information about you? Let's break Kelly Robinson.
Yep. So I am based out in Woodford, actually, in the very northwest outskirts of Brisbane. I practice locally clinic, but I also practice via telehealth and things like that. I do a lot of workshops. So you can find my website, which is foundationsforhealth.com.au. And you'll see you can make inquiries for clinic consultations, which I do via telehealth as well. And you can see access to some workshops and things like that. And then I've also got a Facebook page, social media, so Foundations for Health with Kelly Robinson.
And do you have an email that do you want to say your direct email right now?
Yeah, sure. It's kelly.robinson@foundationsforhealth.com.au.
Perfect.
Super easy.
And if all else fails and they forget this, they can just get in touch with me and I can scoop them through to you, because you are very passionate, you're very knowledgeable, you are do what you in your industry to change people's lives, bottom line. And like you've been helping me with the Rebuild Ladies for a couple of years now, and the changes when I when you came into the group, sensational. There's nothing that I wouldn't have said, oh, but, did we make the changes? The ladies in the group are like sponges. We were just talking about they're in the group for the right reason. They want to change because they're coming for back and hip pain. But, you teach people in the way that they need to be taught. And I love that. So thank you for taking the time out. Like we've said, we're going to do a part 2, date to be announced, but stay tuned because we could talk this for a long time. But thanks for taking the time out, Kel. And keep changing people's lives.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Liz. I absolutely love talking this stuff. I love getting that info out there for people to take on board and actually go out and start making changes and for the better.
Yeah,
so
I love
doing
things.
And I love what you do in Rebuild, your approach, that it's not just, you see it as a bigger picture than just that musculoskeletal side of things, because it's so much bigger than that. And I love how you approach that. It just, it gives me
changes. It just changes lives. People get stuck in the pain cycle of going to weekly appointments and doing stretches, and they're stuck in the relief system. They're missing a link, and inside Rebuild we've got the movement, the nutrition, and the mindset, and they're big 3 inflammations in our body.
Such a powerful combination. I love that so much. I can't tell you.
Thank you, Kel. I really appreciate it. Well, with your help, go and enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and I will be in touch, obviously, and part 2 is coming everybody's way.
I can't wait.
Thanks, Cal.
Thanks, Liz.
That's a wrap on yet another episode. If you love the info, don't be shy. Make sure to like, follow, or subscribe, whichever platform you're on. Once again, share this on your socials, whether it's Insta or Facebook, and make sure you tag me in it at Lisa McLean or at Rebuild Program. Whether you're in chronic pain, have a nagging injury, an athlete who wants to improve your performance, or just want to be more efficient and be a better you, then this podcast is for you. And stay up to date by liking, following, or subscribing to be notified of any new episodes coming your way. On that note, I'm going to leave you until the next time, but make it your mission to be more aware and to be a better you.